Hello, hello. Welcome to Ask the Herbalist with my mom edition. This is my mom. We'll give everybody a minute to join, and then we will start answering your questions, which you have sent in ahead of time, which we always love. As we are answering questions, feel free to chat anything that you want to chat. We'll get to those either in the moment or at the end of the session, as always. So big love to you guys. Thanks for being here. It's such a special moment to have my mom here. We were just talking about how it's full circle.
Right.
So yeah, mom's been at this a long time and obviously inspired my journey. So before we start, is there anything you want to say? Or you just want to dive in?
Let's dive in. You guys sent in some really great questions yesterday.
Yes, you did. All right. So our very first question is, why does combining zinc and green tea make you feel weird? And I'm glad you asked, because both of those herbs would make me throw up just like on an empty stomach. But I think Mom can explain a little more why.
Well, one's a mineral. Zinc, of course, is a mineral, and green tea catechins are from green tea, and on an empty stomach, they just don't settle well. So drink all the green tea you can, but try to do it with a meal or after eating something, and take your minerals with food because they're usually better absorbed. Very few of them interfere with your food, so take your zinc with food, eat zinc in food, and drink your green tea after meals or with meals.
Yeah, good point. I always take my zinc after dinner because it's so intense on my stomach. And then you actually told me you don't want to combine zinc with vitamin D, right? You want to keep those, do those interfere with absorption?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, I might that up.
I don't know.
Never mind that one.
I'm sure there's something out there that interferes with it, but I'm not sure which one it is.
Yeah, funny. All right. So that's the first one. So that's why it makes you feel weird, because both those are really hard on an empty stomach. So split them up, have them with food. All right, so this question is for Mom. What is a functional medicine practitioner?
Rochelle introduced me as her mother, but I've also been a registered dietitian and a functional medicine nutritionist since I started into the functional medicine arena in the early 90s when I worked for a company that started the Institute for Functional Medicine. And IFM, or Institute for Functional Medicine, is aimed at looking at the source of the dysfunction or the disease. We're all a combination of our genetics, our environmental exposures, and of course our lifestyle. And rather than making a diagnosis and giving you a prescription drug, IFM, functional medicine practitioners, aim to find out the origin of the problem and correct that underlying dysfunction. So it's functional medicine, improving your function, personalizing your program, because no two people are alike, and we all need that kind of support and care. So it's been amazing.
Amen. I hope everybody can love that. That's so right and so necessary, and I think so much of why a lot of you are here and what we're looking for, right, is this personalized, holistic support. So that was an awesome description of it.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to take two questions really quick, just because we've kind of covered them in the past, but I don't want to disregard them. So best hormone balancing support and herbs for pregnancy. What's safe and what's to avoid. So for hormone balance, I just want to remind everybody that liver support is really important for hormone balance. We often don't think about that, but your liver is helping to filter the hormones out of your blood. So you definitely want to be doing liver support, but that also means great diet, lots of fiber, lots of water, keep things moving through your system. And then, using, in terms of herbs for hormone support, I actually won't get into that now just because I've answered it a lot in the past. And I have a class called Herbs for Hormone Balance. So if you really care about that topic, please take a look at that class. If you are not ready for the class, watch some of the previous episodes because I've definitely covered it there. And just to speed right into the pregnancy question, the reason that there's not a lot of here are the herbs for pregnancy, what to take and what to avoid, is because there is very little science on herb safety during pregnancy, because that's not a cohort that we want to be doing a bunch of testing on, right? So what we have is traditional use. How have the herbs been used historically, globally, and by traditional people? And then we have a little bit of science. So we know some things that you don't want to take or that you can take. But from an herbalist standpoint, we generally recommend teas only, avoid concentrates and powders and like really strong herbs. And if there's not information on whether or not the herb is safe, it's because science doesn't know. So that's what I'll say there. But if it's something like morning sickness, you can use ginger, you can use some nice carminatives. I feel like, Mom, did you want to mention anything on either of those points, or no pressure, just curious.
I'm not an herbalist like Rochelle is, of course, so my knowledge there is not strong, but I do know that we always discourage high dose vitamin A during pregnancy and lactation. Just a sound, healthy plan, and fill in the gaps where your food intake might not be sufficient. If you have sensitivities or avoid certain foods, then you got to fill in the gap where you're missing that nutrient.
Yeah, and like good I want to call them prenatals.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, take a prenatal. Metagenics. We like Metagenics for prenatals.
They're +1 Metagenics prenatal is one of the best in the industry.
Yeah. So I see a question came in about gut bacteria and SIBO, and we had one come in where you were wanting to talk about some probiotics. What was that question?
It was regarding constipation.
Okay, let's go for it. So the question was, any tips for constipation?
I always remind my clients to be sure and have a thyroid test, because one of the most common causes of constipation is hypo or low thyroid function, because your thyroid gland is located in the base of your throat, but it doesn't always create enough thyroid hormone that can be converted into its active form, thereby slowing down everything in your body, from digestion and elimination patterns to energy to memory to heart rate to circulation. So you definitely don't want to have an underactive thyroid. We were talking last night about high quality fiber in the diet. Many people don't drink enough water, especially when we've been wearing masks all day long indoors. So as far as any herbal products that would help, I'm not sure, but magnesium citrate is always a great nutrient for supporting movement. And then we were looking at also, sometimes people don't have a lot of digestive enzymes, or they don't have enough stomach acid, or they don't have good probiotic bacteria, and all of those can lead to constipation.
Yeah.
So that's when we went back to the probiotic recommendation, and you have a great list.
Yeah, it's true. So Metagenics for probiotics, digestive enzymes, you can get all that at the link in my bio. Mom mentioned a good point about stomach acid, and even if you have acid reflux, it's more common, even with these kind of acidic symptoms, to have low stomach acid, which is called achlorhydria, right, instead of enough stomach acid. So most people, unless you're much older or you specifically know that you have high stomach acid, probably need digestive enzymes, digestive herbal bitters before your meals, bitter foods. Those are super helpful. The other thing that can be really great for gut toning and kind of digestive health toning, and it can be a mild laxative, but it won't cause dependency, is triphala. So triphala is the Ayurvedic herb combo, 3 fruits. We actually just brought it into Supernatural yesterday. So snag triphala there if you want. You can get that in the online store. That's something you can use long term to help basically tone the digestive system and the bowels without creating too much of a laxative dependency. But yeah, fiber and water goes a long way. I used to joke, this was like a year ago, but I used to joke that if people would do like a really good chia seed pudding and some rose petal tea at night, getcha. All right. So somebody wants to know about my earrings. We're going to tangent here for a second. They're Ula Johnson. Did you want to say something else?
I wanted to make a comment about undiagnosed hypochlorhydria and chlorhydria when you don't produce enough acid and people are taking antacids and over-the-counter and prescription antacids long-term, and they don't have the heartburn and the reflux, but you need that acid to begin the digestion of all minerals and all proteins. So over time, you're going to become deficient in proteins and minerals if you're dependent on antacid medication.
Yeah, big one. And I know I'm meeting more and more people who are young people who are just like taking those daily, weekly. Bad news. That's if that's you, it's really, it seems benign because you're kind of like, oh, I have an upset stomach, I'm going to take a Tums or whatever, but long term it can be really problematic. So do be careful with that. And it's your body talking to you, right? Mm-hmm. You know, so it's saying something. Let's see. So we're going to go to, this question was, what are some easy to transport fuels for lengthy bike rides, things that are not all sugar? And my first thought there was things that are powdered and things that are dried. So if you want like performance enhancers, this sounded a little bit more like food, so I'll kind of touch on both. But if you want performance enhancers, I would think of things like cordyceps, beet powder, rhodiola, and I would get them in little instant packets like Four Sigmatic makes. So this packet, you just tear it open, put it in your water bottle and get your boost, right? Definitely electrolytes. Again, you can get those in powder form. When I travel, I'll put a bunch of powders in the bottom of a water bottle, and then I know I can just fill my water bottle up wherever, so I don't have to carry the heavy thing. But then it's like full of like a smoothie, and you could do something like that if you're hiking or biking or whatever you're doing. I'm a fan of, our body, our muscles, our brain, like we do run on glucose unless you're totally fat adapted. But if you're doing long-term training, like you can't, sustain that for too long without glucose. So I would personally do, dried fruit, make sure there's none of the weird stuff in it. Maybe a smoothie if you, depending on how long you're going, can you make yourself a really epic smoothie with tons of fruit, good fiber, plant-based protein, healthy fat, everything in that. And then, did I have anything else? Oh, and then the last thing is I've actually seen some people doing marathon training and they're making a little like honey mixture and they're putting like powdered maca and rhodiola and, the powdered herbs into the honey with some salt. And then you have good like sugar, salt, natural sugar, salt, enzymes, herbs.
Exactly.
And just take spoonfuls of that. Could be really cool. Did you want to add anything else there?
Just bananas and sweet potatoes.
It's true.
Fit in the back of your bike jersey.
It's true. Mash it up and yeah. All right. So the next question we have is, what are some natural treatments for PCOS and low cortisol? And I'll let you want to start with that one.
Okay. Well, first of all, PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it results in some very high levels of male hormones as well as insulin. And when your insulin levels are high for prolonged periods, it changes your cell structure such that glucose can't get into the cell. Therefore, it tends to turn to belly fat, body fat, liver fat, and you end up becoming potentially a diabetic. So the treatment from a nutrition standpoint for me is addressing that insulin resistance. So that would mean a diet that's lower in carbohydrate and that stabilizes blood sugar as much as possible, so fibers are very beneficial. And then we look at remodeling the cell wall. Our cells are made of layers of protein and lipids or fats, so increasing the amount of omega-3 essential oil that you get in your day. Some omega-6 is helpful. And then looking at the nutrients that help transport glucose from your bloodstream across the cell wall or through the cell wall and deliver it to the cell itself so it can be converted into energy. So we look at B vitamins, we look at chromium, vanadium. There's a host of herbs that Rochelle can address that all support stabilizing blood sugar and that high insulin production. And it's very interesting because I've worked with patients like this for years, and they may come in with PCOS and some weight gain and some infertility concerns, and by getting their diet changed around, the PCOS resolves and they become fertile and can bear children then, and it's very exciting to see that happen if that's their goal, as well as not be a diabetic or deal with other long-term health concerns.
Yeah.
But you wanted to mention too some of the other herbs and nutrients. Yeah.
I'm just sitting over here smirking because this is so fun, and I'm like, I'm so proud of my mom.
I'm proud of my daughter.
So for PCOS and low cortisol, well, we'll go back to the low cortisol actually in a sec. So for PCOS, I definitely look at it from a metabolic standpoint first. And I think at least in the people that I work with, that is the biggest surprise at first. I think people, think primarily of it as a hormone imbalance and a hormone imbalance first, but we actually address it with metabolism, diet, lifestyle, and, metabolic treatments. So, and it's really, it's very common, and it's actually really inspiring to hear that you can totally resolve it, depending on the severity, but you can totally resolve it with diet and lifestyle. So if anybody here is struggling with that, that's a real potential to reverse that. And then what I would do is I would do the same sort of protocol that I would do for hormone balance, which would be liver support, maybe some herbs that would work on the endocrine system, maybe something like maca. But we don't really need to mess with the hormones because we back up behind that level, right? I mean, you want to detox them, but you don't want to try to adjust the levels of testosterone and estrogen and progesterone because you're fixing it with diet and lifestyle. And even, mom mentioned that it can lead to weight gain, right? Specifically fat gain. And when there's excess amount of body fat, then it can push you into estrogen dominance territory. So again, we're addressing body composition instead of the estrogen levels, and that will help resolve it. So there's that. And then, I guess I will, because I actually have these on my desk. I'll show you guys some of my favorite herbs for blood sugar balance. These just came in because I'm doing some work with Sugar Break. You guys have seen me talk about this company before. We brought these into Supernatural a few months ago. I think they're brilliant, and they do herbal supplements this is for blood sugar and A1C levels, and this is helping specifically around high carb meals to balance it out. And they're using gymnema, fenugreek, green tea, chromium. It's super straightforward. So I love these. And then we can talk about the low cortisol.
Sure.
Yeah. You can go first.
Okay, well, low cortisol is less common than high cortisol in the stressful environment we're all dealing with still. But someone did ask about low cortisol levels, and my experience has been to use a particular product that contains several ingredients, phosphatidylserine, L-theanine, ashwagandha, which Rochelle is very gifted at addressing, and some magnolia. But, addressing too, often low cortisol may be from adrenal fatigue. So kind of backing up and seeing, well, maybe there's other lifestyle choices they can make. Are they getting enough sleep? Are they, doing meditation or yoga or some other things to help rebalance and lower the adrenal stress?
That's true. Yeah.
Minimizing caffeine and alcohol would be also something to look at. But
yeah, I think you nailed it there too. It's if you have low cortisol in this day and age,
what happens?
It's probably, it's pretty likely, right, that you're just so burned out that you're in the adrenal fatigue stage, and that's why it's low. The things that come to mind for me are definitely anything you would do to treat adrenal fatigue, which would be lifestyle, and then also herbs that work on the HPA axis, which are the adaptogens, which everybody loves, obviously. So those are ashwagandha, rhodiola, the ginsengs, some mushrooms, maybe some shilajit. There's a product we have at Supernatural that's called Adrenal Jumpstart by Gaia that is basically perfectly crafted to help somebody who's in the stage of adrenal fatigue. You get a good blend of adaptogens that can help pull you out of that. But that's a temporary fix if your lifestyle is not adjusted. The other interesting herb, I think, around cortisol is licorice. And licorice allows, the simple way that I find to describe it is that licorice allows cortisol to exist in our system longer. So it makes your production of cortisol a little more efficient, so you don't metabolize it as quickly and can kind of sustain you longer. So it's kind of an interesting herb to use if you want to like make your cortisol last, or you want to draw it out. It kind of reminds me of what L-theanine does to caffeine in that way. But yeah, you got them there, Mom.
Well, I also think you need to be aware if you have hypertension, high blood pressure, you should not be using anything to maintain that higher cortisol level. So
yeah, that's true.
The licorice might not be the best choice in someone with hypertension.
Definitely. All right, so we've got a couple of questions left, and we're going to, what are we going to do? We're going to do, we'll talk about mixed connective tissue disorder and inflammation kind of quickly. I'll take that, and then we'll talk about the field of natural medicine, and your tried and true herb will be our last one.
Okay.
So this was an interesting question that came in. I was recently diagnosed with mixed connective tissue disorder. My rheumatologist has not recommended any lifestyle or eating changes. Can you suggest some foods to assist with inflammation? Foods or supplements to assist with inflammation? So there are three parts to this question, actually. Mixed connective tissue disorder being having an autoimmune component, right? So we can talk about autoimmunity. My rheumatologist has not recommended any lifestyle or eating changes. That's a flag. You see our face, we're like,
help.
Yeah, so that's not a good sign, right? Because there's, most of us can do some sort of diet. Like, we can change our diet and lifestyle for sure. Like, no one's there, right? So there's always something that can be done there. And then, can you suggest some supplements and foods to assist with inflammation? 100%, yeah. So there's like three parts. So we'll go a little quickly, but maybe, do you want to talk about autoimmune and how you address autoimmunity, just like the main points?
Well, I definitely look at the gut. And I do a 4R approach, which is remove food allergens, food sensitivities. Definitely autoimmune patients seemingly need to be gluten-free. They may need to be dairy-free. And with some of the arthritis-like symptoms, they may need to avoid nightshade family of vegetables. I look at replacing any digestive enzymes or factors to help improve digestion. I look at reinoculating, repopulating the gut with good probiotics, and then going deeper and repairing the actual gut membrane with a variety of products and supplements. So when you correct that, then it's not such a burden on the gut and on the bloodstream, because many things will seep across this leaky gut, and their next stop is your liver, and then that burdens the liver, so inflammation's even worse. So that's my approach, and probably my number one anti-inflammatory fat would be, again, higher dose omega-3 oil.
Nice.
But there are a whole host of spices and herbs that do many of the same things, but that omega-3 seems to be, even though it's an oil, it puts the fire out.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's great. And so isn't that interesting that we're talking about autoimmunity and go straight to the gut? Mm-hmm. It's because the gut and the immune system, right, are like this, right, next to each other, and you get any kind of permeation in the gut and permeability in the gut, and your immune system is triggered. So gut is always key when you're treating autoimmunity. Did you want to say something more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so she covered gut. I think some of the things that you can do for the immune system too are look at immunoregulatory herbs or immunomodulating herbs. Those are basically synonyms, and those are herbs that help to, we'll have to recommend a good omega-3. Someone asked about that. Immunomodulators, immunoregulators help the immune system to be active enough but not overactive. And the best category of those, just like easy go-to, are functional mushrooms. So, for example, I'm going to start doing some work with these guys, Spore. They make great blends of a whole bunch of different mushrooms. You know, it can be them, it can be Four Sigmatic, it can be somebody else, but taking those functional mushrooms helps your immune system to be balanced. There are other herbs that help stimulate your immune system, and if you have an autoimmune condition where your immune system is overactive, you don't want to be taking immunostimulant herbs. So, functional mushrooms for that.
A little sidebar note, you don't know that I'm also a beekeeper, and I actually use probiotic powder and mushroom extracts on my beehives. So at the start of the season, end of the season, I'm just trying to give them that boost of immunity so they don't die or become mite infested.
Or get mixed connective tissue disorder.
There you go.
Healthy bees.
Or leaky gut.
Or leaky gut. No leaky gut in bees. Okay, and so then the next point, inflammation. Mom mentioned inflammation. My go-to for inflammation is, you know, after you're making sure your food is, you know, in a really great place, stress, and then turmeric. I would say, you know, turmeric or cumin with the black pepper. You can also do things like frankincense and myrrh. Incredible, especially together. There's a synergy with those two herbs that makes them really powerful. A lot of times, even in metagenics blends, you will see those blended because they're extra potent. So, you know, and a lot of plant-based foods just are anti-inflammatory. You know, they just are. So more of those. Omegas. Did we recommend a good omega?
Well, there's quite a few good ones out there, but my go-to is the Metagenics Omegagenics line. They have both a liquid, and they have it for children, and they have it for adults, and they have varying doses from 500 milligrams of soft gel all the way up to 1,000. People are like, well, why can't I just go to the big box store and buy it across the counter? Because you don't know where those oils come from, and our waters are very polluted. So you want high quality fish origin. You want a company that's ensuring that the oil is clean, there's no heavy metals, toxins, etc. in there. And then they make sure that the soft gels are filled to what they say they are. Mm-hmm. And they monitor over time that they're not becoming rancid or changing in oxidation and having things change about the actual product. Mm-hmm. But there are other great companies out there, and Rochelle, I know, speaks about them quite often.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do a post later this week on Big Bold Health. They have a fish oil that is pretty incredible. Same founder, so you're getting some of the same quality standards, and I've been taking that. It's called Fire and Ice. There's a highlight in my bio if you wanted to check that one out. Big Bold Health is really good.
Isn't it a salmon oil?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, and Gabby, I think it was, so this was Gabby's question, and she just says thank you so much for spending so much time on this question. So
good.
You're welcome, Gabby. Thank you for sending in your question. All right, so we are going to wrap up in a minute, but we are going to first ask Mom two last questions. Mom, how has the field of natural medicine changed since you began?
Well, I would say when I began, it wasn't a natural medicine field. It was a clinical dietetics curriculum, clinical dietetics, hospital training, working in a hospital with other clinicians. And it wasn't until I discovered functional medicine, the Institute for Functional Medicine, that I began to meet others that have the same dreams that I had to actually address people's individual problems and treat them from the dysfunction to a functional state. Since the Institute of Functional Medicine began in the early 90s, those courses were all taught by leaders in the medical community. They were all medical doctors. So when you have medical doctors teaching a course on neurology or cardiology or gastroenterology, and these courses are attended by medical doctors, you get a growing number of physicians now that are starting to think like naturopaths and herbalists and nutritionists like myself. So that group is 25 years old now, and it's just grown exponentially. They have an online ifm.org website. Many of the articles are free for you to read. You know, they're fairly scientific and medical based, but that's how much it's changed in the last 25 years. It's becoming more and more acceptable among mainstream Western physicians.
Awesome. People want to know if you're accepting clients. Give your contact information. That's my answer too. I'm sorry.
Look at me. I'm here with her for the next week or so.
We'll see if Mom wants to share her phone number. We'll pass it out. All right. So last question is, Mom, what is your tried and true herb, the one that's been by your side all of these years?
Well, I can tell you for sure lavender has been my best friend. And from taking lavender baths, scented baths, Epsom salt baths with lavender in them, lavender oil on my pulse points at night. I'll go for a walk and pick lavender and slide it into my pillowcase. I have a lavender scented sheet spray. I have no trouble sleeping. But I also have started integrating more things orally, in the sense that I make a wonderful tea for myself. And it's 3 different teas. I've been using calendula tea for inflammation. I've been using turmeric ginger tea, and I've been using oolong tea, all 3 of those in one batch. And then I add a cinnamon stick and some star anise and some cloves, and I cold brew it and then reheat it, and I drink that all day the next day. And I'm trying to get in all of these wonderful polyphenols and antioxidants and things from plants and spices and herbs, because I can't eat them all. And so those have been, the lavender has been part of my calming lifestyle, and then the other are just to maintain my health.
That's an epic tea, right? Epic tea.
It tastes and smells really good.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up. I'm impressed we did that with just 1 minute over.
Okay.
Thank you everyone so much for being here. And I know, many of you watch these recordings later. Oh, wait, this is a good question. Maybe we can take this last question. How do they find a good functional medicine practitioner? Would that institute?
The IFM might have them listed. I've often recommended, since I'm in Washington State, Rochelle's in New York, I get people saying, do you know anyone in California? Do you know anyone in New Jersey? And I often will recommend that they go to Metagenics and send a request. Are there any practitioners? If we know how to use these products, we may very well have gone to the Institute for Functional Medicine, or we may know people that work with that organization, and we may be very accomplished in how to use the products. So sometimes just going to the distributor and reaching out and saying who is in New York, or who's in New Jersey, who's in California, that might be able to help me.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we mentioned IFM, that's Institute for Functional Medicine, so you can check that out. And with that, we will conclude. Thanks for being here. Thanks everybody who watches the recordings later. Feel free to leave more questions in the comments. I will be back next week. I won't have my mom with me next week, but we'll have to do this again because it was super fun. So, bye.
Take care.